Hi everyone, welcome to the Rugby League History channel. Today I'll be doing another retro season review as part of my retro season review series. I've done quite a few of them now. There's an extensive playlist, go check it out, it's on my channel. But today I'll be doing the North Sydney Bears season for 1999. Just a bit of background on the North Sydney side in the 1990s. They were one of the most consistent sides of the decade. They only missed the finals twice, and in one of those seasons, when it were a top 5 final series, not a top 8, they come 6th that year, and they only missed 5th place by 3 points. They made 4 preliminary finals in the 1990s. They come very close to reaching a grand final and ended one of the longest premiership droughts in Australian sport history. And they also had some very talented players who played for Queensland, New South Wales and Australia. And it were a big change from North Sydney sides of previous decades, where in some decades they went the entire period without reaching any final series. So the 1990s was a very fruitful time for North Sydney and the club as a whole. However, the 99 season was probably the toughest in North Sydney's long history. The club finished 14th on the table. They were coached for 16 matches by Peter Louis and 8 by Kieran Dempsey. The captain were Jason Taylor. The biggest home crowd they got were 13,442 against Brisbane. The average home crowd for the year were 9,217. The top point scorer for the year, of course, were Jason Taylor with 158, and the highest try scorer for the year were Michael Butner with 15 tries. The club did start 99 in very good form, though they won their opening 3 matches over Western Suburbs, Auckland and North Queensland. They then defeated Belmean, and in the opening 5 matches the club had won 4 of them, only losing to St George, and they sat 4th on the competition table. However, in the next 6 matches they didn't win a single game, and they found themselves after round 12 in 12th place on the table after losing to Cronulla 21 points to 20. In round 13 of the competition, North Sydney played their first home match of the season. Now, some of you might be thinking, first home match of the season, round 13, that doesn't sound right. I'll explain that more in depth as we go further into the video, but anyways, they beat Belmean 64 points to 12, which was a massive return to form considering they'd lost their last 6 matches, and it was Belmean's 3rd highest loss in their history. The win over Belmean proved to be a flash in the pan, and by round 18, the club had lost 46 points to 20 by Newcastle. Peter Louis, who were the head coach from 1993 and statistically is the second most successful coach in North Sydney's history, he stepped down after there's been rumours said that there was a coup staged by some of the players. There was a lot of unrest in the playing group, and I have read interviews where players at the time said that things were getting stale, things needed to be changed up, and it had been that way for some time. But Peter Louis decided to step down as head coach, and as a result, Kieran Dempsey was put in as interim head coach for the remainder of the year. In round 20 of the competition, North Sydney hosted Manly Warringah, their arch rivals, at North Sydney Oval. For what would be the final time, these two sides would play each other in the top grade. And unfortunately for North Sydney supporters, Manly run out 28 points to 22 winners. Results didn't improve under Kieran Dempsey as interim head coach, and some of the results were quite nasty. In round 21, they were beaten 44 points to 4 by Parramatta. Round 23, they were thrashed 46-16 by Canberra. And in round 24, they were beaten 56 points to 18 by Cronulla at North Sydney Oval. In round 25 of the competition, North Sydney played what would be their last ever home match at North Sydney Oval in the top grade, and the opponent were Melbourne. 7,241 people attended the game to watch North Sydney upset Melbourne. They won 24 points to 20. They actually come from behind to win the game, and considering that Melbourne went on to win the premiership that year, it were a big win for North Sydney. And in round 26, North Sydney would play their last ever game in the NRL in the top grade. At the time, people didn't know that it would be their last ever game in the top grade. Even if you watch the DVD of this match against North Queensland, they approached Billy Miller just after half time and ask him what's going to be happening next year, and even he went, I don't know. I don't know if we'll be on the Central Coast. I don't know if we're merging with someone else. I've got no idea. I wouldn't be able to tell you. And North Sydney travelled up to Townsville for that match against North Queensland. It was a lower table affair between these two struggling sides. And North Sydney in their final ever game won 28 points to 18 at the Willow Sports Complex. Jason Taylor got 2 tries. Michael Butner scored a try. Gary Lawson scored. And Anthony Swan also crossed over. Jason Taylor kicked 3 from 5. And Mark Soden, he got a shot in front of the sticks there, right before foot line, I believe, by memory. And he just got that conversion as well. And also, Matt Sears, he was sin bin, so he became the last ever North Sydney player to be sin bin in the game. And just for extra trivia, yours truly, Rugby League history, I were at that game. I lived a while in Townsville there, and I've got the ticket at home somewhere. It's in a special box with most of my other tickets that I've got. And I were actually at the game, but I remember very vaguely being at the game, and at the time nobody knew what was going to happen to North Sydney. Nobody knew that that would be their final ever game, but that's an extra bit of trivia for you. Now, go back to that earlier point that I mentioned about North Sydney playing their first home match of the year in round 13 against Balmain. Well, in the late 1990s, North Sydney were told by the NRL that North Sydney Oval were not up to standard and they could no longer really play home matches there. North Sydney, before that, were one of the first Sydney clubs to realise that the number of Sydney clubs would be reduced, either through the Super League war or through other means. And they were very proactive in looking for somewhere else to relocate. They were one of the first sides to do it. And it was announced in the 1996 or 1997 season that North Sydney would be relocating to the Central Coast. Now, the Central Coast Stadium, as you all probably know today, was built for North Sydney, but it was meant to be ready for the 99 NRL season. However, with construction delays and other things happening, it weren't ready in time. So for the first half of 99, North Sydney Oval was vacant and North Sydney were playing on the road as Gypsies. On top of that, North Sydney were also no longer sponsored by Citibank. They were sponsored by a company called BBX. And from what I've been told by people that are close to the club, they said BBX pretty much brought in no money for the sponsorship. So on top of not being able to play at North Sydney Oval, they were getting no money from the sponsors. And when I mean Gypsies, North Sydney pretty much played home matches everywhere. They even took a game to Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane against North Queensland, and one of the lowest ever crowds for an NRL game saw North Sydney beat North Queensland in front of 3,382 people. With all this going on as well, it happened at the worst possible time, because in the 99 season it were announced that for the 2000 NRL season there had to be 14 teams, which meant that teams had to be merged or culled or whatever have you. So it was an awful time for North Sydney because they were effectively homeless for most of the year. They had no money coming in from a lot of different revenues, and as a result, they were an easy target for the NRL to say, look, you have to go, you either have to be merged or die. And North Sydney were 4 million Australian dollars in debt as well. That was through not having a home ground, poor management, everything going wrong at the one time. And they ended up having to merge with their arch rivals Manly to form the Northern Eagles, which were highly controversial. Throughout 99 as well, North Sydney were hoping to relocate to the Central Coast Stadium. However, the stadium was delayed due to heavy rain. That year it just happened to rain at Gosford, and not much construction work got done on the ground. So realistically, they were meant to be, if they relocated to the Central Coast, they were meant to be playing round one at Central Coast Stadium in the year 2000 as the Central Coast Bears. So all in all, it were a horrid year for North Sydney. They didn't have a home ground for most of it. They didn't have a lot of money coming in. They had a player coup, unrest in the playing squads, lots of uncertain futures. Lots of players actually moved up to the Central Coast and got houses up there and had a lot of money invested in moving up there, and it just didn't happen. And just pretty much everything you could think of went wrong. And when I look back at North Sydney in '99 and what happened to them, for me, the reason why they're not in the NRL now is number one, the Super League war. Number two, waiting for that ground to be built at the Central Coast, which never got built in time. And number three, very poor management, especially from the top. I think his name's Reed Beattie and the other one's Bob Saunders. Both of them have a lot to answer for when it comes to North Sydney and their demise from the NRL. Looking back at some of the games this year, if I were to pick the best results for North Sydney in '99, obviously round 13 against Balmain, 64 points to 12. That way the North Sydney of old. That's the North Sydney that I remember. And then also the two last games to close out the year, beating Melbourne, last home game ever at North Sydney Oval. Melbourne ended up winning the premiership that year. Good result for them. And then to go out as winners in Townsville there in their last ever game, I mean, that's at least a positive to look back on. Of course, going into the 2000 NRL season with the Northern Eagles, a lot of the North Sydney players that were in the '99 squad were not chosen to be part of the 2000 NRL season for the Northern Eagles. There was only about 9 or 10 players from North that made the crossover. Some of them were Michael Butner, Jason Taylor, Nigel Roy, Jamie Goddard, players like that. All the others, well, most of them either didn't play first grade again or they went to other clubs as journeymen. As we all know, since '99, North Sydney have been playing in the New South Wales Cup, and they still play at North Sydney Oval. There's been lots of attempts to bring the club back as either Central Coast, or there was the Gold Coast bid, there's been the Perth bid, there's been a few. But I've been to North Sydney Oval, and it's quite sad really when you sit there and you think, look, just over 25 years ago, the club was playing in front of 20,000 people, some matches at North Sydney Oval, and they were a top team, and then you see him running out against Mounties and there's 300 people there. It's a stark contrast, and it's pretty sad when you think about it, but hopefully with North Sydney they can be back one day in some form, because like Western Suburbs, Balmain, all the foundation clubs, I do miss North Sydney a lot, and I think that they were hard done by in the end. So that concludes my video on North Sydney's 1999 season. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comment section below. Let me know which retro season review you would like me to do next. Thanks to everyone that watched the Balmain retro season review. It got over 1,000 views, which I think is really good, considering that was a season that happened 24 years ago. But anyways, everyone, this has been Rugby League History, and I'll catch us all later in the next video. Alright, tatty bye for now.